You are looking at the Khan River, just west of Tehran, in late 2025. Those 33 arches used to span a flowing river. Today, they sit over severely cracked, dry earth. This map illustrates the region's vulnerability. Today, 83% of the Middle East lives under extreme water stress. The World Resources Institute projects that by 2050, it will reach 100%. Natural supply simply cannot meet demand. For centuries, communities here survived using qanats, ancient underground networks that sustainably channeled groundwater to the surface. In recent decades, these traditional systems were largely abandoned in favor of aggressive deep groundwater extraction to fuel rapid population growth. That relentless pumping drained the aquifers. Without the groundwater supporting the soil, salt levels spiked and the physical earth began to collapse. In parts of Tehran, this extraction has caused the ground to sink at a rate of several inches per year. These management choices exhausted natural reserves, pushing the region to the absolute edge of survival before the first shots of modern conflict were ever fired. To survive this deficit, Gulf states like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Oman have turned to the ocean. They rely on industrial-scale desalination plants for the overwhelming majority of their daily drinking water. Building billion-dollar coastal plants is out of reach for many. In Egypt and Yemen, population growth and rising temperatures drive acute freshwater shortages. Without a high-tech safety net, citizens are left rationing whatever comes out of a community hose. Without water, a country cannot grow its own food. This deficit forces the region to rely on global supply chains and massive cargo ports to import the calories needed to survive. Relying on exposed pipes and foreign ships leaves millions vulnerable. Any disruption to supply routes can trigger a systemic collapse. That baseline fragility leads to the first stage of the crisis equation. When basic resources run dry, communities are forced to move, local economies stall, and social unrest follows. The Pacific Institute tracks these flashpoints, and they report a sharp rise in water-related conflicts. Access to a flowing river or an aquifer has become a highly contested political grievance. We have seen this play out before. In Syria, a devastating, prolonged drought caused massive crop failures and rural economic collapse. That mass displacement created the pressure that eventually fractured into civil war. Today, the intensifying war in Iran stretches these same fault lines. Active combat disrupts critical food and water supply chains, amplifying tension across neighboring borders. Extreme scarcity is no longer just a symptom of instability. It is actively manufacturing the conditions for future wars. Once fighting starts, the second stage of the loop kicks in. Those fragile coastal plants and pipelines become exposed casualties and often deliberate military targets. Researcher Sakakochia outlines a deadly cycle. Scarcity fuels instability. Instability causes violence, which damages water systems. This creates even more severe scarcity. As fighting continues, the cycle accelerates. War makes it impossible to deploy engineers to repair shattered infrastructure. The damage locks in. Repairing a massive civil engineering project during an active conflict is a logistical nightmare. You have lone relief workers navigating exposed trenches just to patch a pipe, while millions of civilians go without. This creates a fatal paradox. The region cannot rebuild its water systems without peace, and it cannot maintain peace without water. Because of these active conflicts, a short-term fix is impossible. The existing infrastructure will continue to deteriorate as long as the violence continues. Breaking this loop requires a systemic overhaul of how the Middle East manages its hydrology. Nations must end water-intensive agriculture, improve efficiency of existing grids, and distribute their remaining water equitably. Governments must also invest in water recycling and build far more resilient desalination plants. These massive facilities are the only way to process enough volume to keep the population hydrated. When a nation's drinking supply depends on a handful of facilities or a single drought-prone river, water security becomes the primary driver of national defense. Breaking the cycle of water scarcity and war is no longer a policy goal. It is the absolute prerequisite for national security and human survival in the Middle East.